Call 911 now! She's turning blue!
Imagine this. In the glittering heart of a Philadelphia skyscraper, a billionaire CEO drops dead mid-meeting, her empire's elite frozen in shock. But it's not a doctor or exec who saves her, it's the lowly janitor they despise. He breathes life into her with desperate CPR, only for them to beat him bloody and brand him a predator. Hero or harasser. One act of mercy unleashes a storm of lies that could destroy him forever. Buckle up, this underdog's fight starts now. She died in front of 7 millionaires. And the only person who moved was the janitor they hated. He forced life back into a billionaire with his own mouth while they beat him for it. This is the moment everything went wrong. Call 911, now she is turning blue. Bernard Kellerman shouted as he dropped his mop onto the floor and sprinted forward. Gasps erupted across the executive boardroom. Just minutes earlier, Alexandra Ashcroft, the billionaire CEO of Ashcroft Holdings in the heart of Philadelphia, had been standing at the head of the long oak conference table, her voice firm and steady as she presented the quarterly numbers. Then mid-sentence she stopped, her hand rose to her chest, her breath faltered, the room plunged into a terrifying silence as her body convulsed once, twice, then collapsed to the floor. At first no one believed it. The executives froze. 7 men and women in suits worth more than Bernard earned in an entire year. Someone muttered, "She is joking." Another whispered, "Oh God, call security." Then the truth hit. Alexandra Ashcroft was not moving. Her lips were turning purple, but Bernard did not hesitate. He pushed through the door, forcing his way past a wall of expensive perfume and luxury suits. "Bernard, what are you doing?" someone barked. "You do not belong in here," another snapped. "Get out, I." No CPR, Bernard shouted, but no one cared. Alexandra lay on her side, one arm limp across, her chest, her lips shifting into a terrifying gray-blue. She was not breathing. Bernard dropped to his knees beside her. "Miss Ashcroft, can you hear me?" he whispered. Panic rising in his throat, he pressed 2 fingers to her neck. No pulse. Then he acted. He had once taken a free CPR class at the West Philadelphia Community Center just to get a food voucher, but in this moment the instructor voice echoed louder in his mind than anything else in that room. "If they are not breathing, you are their lungs." He tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and leaned down. "Is he kissing her?" someone shrieked. "That is disgusting." Another cried, "Get him off her." A sharp pain tore across Bernard's back. Someone had swung something hard, maybe a security baton, maybe an umbrella, straight into him. He groaned, but he did not stop. He continued 2 breaths. Then he locked his hands together. Chest compressions, 1, 2, 3, 4, another. Blow landed hard on his shoulder. He winced, but he kept counting, kept pressing. "You filthy janitor," someone hissed. "Do not touch her." The boardroom exploded into chaos around him, but Bernard stayed anchored. His arms burned, his back throbbed. His eyes stung, but he did not stop. "Do not," he whispered through clenched teeth. "Do not die like this." 25, 26, 27. Someone grabbed his shoulder and yanked him back. Bernard tore himself free, continued compressions, then leaned down for 2 more breaths. Suddenly, Alexandra's chest jerked violently. She coughed hard, then sucked in air like someone being pulled from the bottom of the ocean. Her eyelids fluttered. She was breathing. Bernard collapsed, his whole body trembling, his back burning, his shoulders raw, his hands numb, but she was alive. He had saved her. The expensive suits swarmed her, now tripping over themselves in clumsy panic. "Miss Ashcroft." "Alexandra, stay with us." The boardroom doors burst open and paramedics rushed in. They took over, lifting Alexandra onto the stretcher. One of them turned back and asked who started. "CPR, I did," Bernard said, voice weak. He did not get to say anything more before a tall man with silver hair stepped forward, his badge reading Tyler Brigham, CFO, his face twisted with disgust. "What is your name?" he demanded. "Bernard Kellerman," he said, standing up straight. "I am a janitor. You put your mouth on Miss Ashcroft," the man said, as if Bernard had contaminated the CEO rather than saved her life. "She was not breathing," Bernard replied. "I will be reviewing the security footage," the CFO snapped. "You need to leave immediately and do not return until contacted." Bernard's throat tightened. His back still throbbed. He looked around at the executives, whose boss he had just saved from dying in front of them. Not a single thank you. Bernard bent down, grabbed his bucket with trembling hands, and pushed it out of the boardroom. Each step felt heavier than the last, but Bernard had no idea the moment he walked out that door something entirely different was unfolding. Inside the hospital, something that would change his life forever. Tomorrow, Bernard walks back into the tower, thinking it is just another shift. Instead, they erase him from existence. He saved a billionaire with his own breath, and by sunrise, they turned him into a monster. Fired, smeared, hunted, broken. Bernard Kellerman walked out of that tower thinking the nightmare was over. It was only beginning. That night, Bernard sat, hunched on the rattling city bus, like a man trying to disappear into his own bones. Every jolt sending fresh fire through the bruises on his back and ribs. City lights streaking past the window in long, bleeding lines that matched the hollow ache behind his eyes. When the bus finally coughed to a stop in West Philadelphia, the cold December air hit him like a slap, carrying the distant rumble of freight trains and the sharp laughter of kids still playing night baseball in the alley. Molly came running barefoot, clutching her ragged teddy bear. "Daddy, you are home late. Are you okay?" He lied the way he always did. "Just a long day, baby girl," and carried her inside, where the smell of reheated mac and cheese waited like a small kindness. Janet Holloway, the neighbor who watched Molly on night shifts, gave him one long look and knew something had died in him tonight. After Molly finally fell asleep, Bernard lay on the thin mattress, listening to the heater rattle and cough tracing, the purple welts across his back replaying. Alexandra Ashcroft's lips turning blue beneath his, the way her chest suddenly jerked back to life under his hands. He had saved a woman's life, and all they saw was a poor black janitor who dared put his mouth on a billionaire. Next morning he stood outside Ashcroft Tower in the same gray uniform, clutching a plastic bag with a peanut butter sandwich and a bruised apple, hoping it had all been some terrible mistake. Before he could even reach the revolving door, a security guard blocked him. "Cannot come in. Orders from the top." Bernard's stomach dropped through the pavement. He tried the side entrance, the loading dock, same story. Inside the narrow hallway, by the staff lockers, the night shift. Supervisor handed him a sealed envelope and looked away. "You are done. Inappropriate conduct with senior personnel." Bernard opened it with shaking hands. Termination. Letter, final paycheck, no explanation, no severance. Just those 2 words, inappropriate conduct, burning like acid. Next morning he stood outside Ashcroft Tower in the same gray uniform, clutching a plastic bag with a peanut butter sandwich and a bruised apple, hoping it had all been some terrible mistake. Before he could even reach the revolving door, a security guard blocked him. "Cannot come in. Orders from the top." Bernard's stomach dropped through the pavement. He tried the side entrance, the loading dock, same story. Inside the narrow hallway, by the staff lockers, the night shift. Supervisor handed him a sealed envelope and looked away. "You are done. Inappropriate conduct with senior personnel." Bernard opened it with shaking hands. Termination. Letter, final paycheck, no explanation, no severance. Just those 2 words, inappropriate conduct, burning like acid. Outside again, the city kept moving, suits sipping lattes. Horns blaring, nobody seeing the man coming apart on the sidewalk. His phone buzzed, non-stop screenshots from the company group chat. That janitor creep was all over. Miss Ashcroft looked like he was kissing her disgusting assault. A blurry security still. Bernard leaning over Alexandra, frozen mid-breath, twisted into something filthy. By noon the internet had its villain. Blogs screamed headlines. "Janitor caught crossing the line with unconscious CEO." Fake profiles popped up overnight. "Single dad predator. He made it home early." Molly ran to him, confused and happy. "You are home." He forced a smile that felt like glass in his mouth. Janet watched from the kitchen TV, muted on some talking head. "You look like death warmed over Bernard." He told her the short version, fired, lies everywhere. That night the phone kept lighting up old co-workers, warning him to stay. Quiet, a church friend saying people were whispering about the video, his own sister texting that the gossip had reached Sunday service. He deleted every social media account, but new ones kept sprouting, with his face in captions like, "Billionaire Hunter." Then the final call came after midnight. A cold HR voice. "Our investigation is complete. Your conduct was inappropriate. Employment terminated immediately. We will not pursue charges, but advise you never return to the premises." Bernard sat bolt upright in the dark, phone pressed to his ear long after the line went dead. Molly shifted beside him, mumbling about pancakes. He stared at the ceiling and felt something inside him break clean in half. Saving a life was supposed to be the right thing. Instead, it had become the thing that erased him. Across the city, in a penthouse glowing with soft light, Alexandra Ashcroft jolted, awake from another nightmare, black void. "No." Air, a man, desperate voice pulling her back. "Come on, breathe." She sat on the edge of her bed, drenched in sweat, heart racing. The same dream for the 4th night in a row. She still did not know his name, but she was about to. Tomorrow. Alexandra watches the security tape, and what she sees turns her gratitude into fury. One billionaire is about to discover the truth they tried to bury, and she is coming for the men who destroyed an innocent life. She died in a boardroom full of millionaires and was saved by a janitor they hated now. The billionaire drives herself into the forgotten streets to find the man they destroyed. What she sees when that door opens breaks her harder than death ever did. 3 days after watching the security tape, Alexandra Ashcroft could not sleep. Bernard Kellerman face-haunted, every closed eyelid, the fear in his eyes, the way he took hit after hit and never stopped pressing life into her chest. She had built an empire on cold decisions, but this felt different. She did not call her driver. She pulled on jeans, a hoodie, and took her own black Mercedes keys. The glass towers faded in the mirror as she drove west. Steel turned to brick, turned to boarded windows and rusted cars. She found the address in West Philadelphia, a low brown building with peeling paint and a sagging metal staircase. She parked, climbed the stairs, and knocked. The door cracked open. A tiny girl stood there, barefoot in a thin nightshirt, clutching a stuffed bear. "You are the lady from the billboard, Alexandra." Knelt. "I am looking for Bernard." The girl, Molly, looked ready to cry. "He is sick. He will not get up. I made soup. I tried medicine. He just says he is tired," and lies down again. Alexandra stepped inside. The apartment was small and dim. Walls faded, heater rattling but barely warm. Bernard lay curled on a thin mattress in the corner. Wrapped in 2 worn blankets, his face was gray cheeks, hollow breath fast and shallow. She dropped to her knees. "Bernard, it is me." "Alexandra Ashcroft," he did. "Not move." She took his hand. It burned with fever. "Call an ambulance now." Molly stood frozen, clutching her bear. Alexandra squeezed his hand. "Harder. You saved my life now. It is my turn to save your." Sirens came fast. Paramedics rushed in. Severe dehydration. Fever, 103. Systemic. Stress collapse. They lifted Bernard onto the stretcher, started an IV. Alexandra climbed into the ambulance after him. Neighbors stared from windows, but she did not care. Inside the ambulance, a paramedic clipped an oxygen monitor to Bernard's finger. He looked up and recognized, "Here you are, Alexandra Ashcroft." He looked at Bernard. "He is the one." She nodded. "Yes." Respect crossed the medic face. At Northside Medical, a full team waited. They took Bernard straight through the double doors. Alexandra followed until a nurse stopped her. "We'll take care of him. Please wait." She paced the quiet waiting room. Soft leather chairs, warm lights, a piano playing gentle jazz. Everything felt muffled. She called her assistant. "Cancel everything for 2 days. Bring his daughter." "Here she is alone," Fiona answered. "Instantly on my way." An hour later, Molly arrived, with a social worker still clutching her bear. Alexandra knelt again. "Daddy is going to be okay. I promise." Doctors worked fast. Fluids, antibiotics, scans. Bernard was stable but broken by grief and lies. Alexandra sat by his bed long after. Molly fell asleep in the next room. She looked at the man who had breathed life into her when no one else moved and made a promise this time. "I will not let you slip away." Tomorrow Bernard opens his eyes in a world he does not recognize, face with the woman he saved, while she prepares to walk into her boardroom and burn every lie to the ground. He woke up in a private hospital room, not knowing if he was dreaming. She stood over him, the woman whose life he saved, ready to walk back into her boardroom and destroy every man who tried to destroy him. This is the day justice finally spoke louder than money. Bernard opened his eyes to soft morning light and the steady beep of machines. His throat felt like sandpaper. His body weighed 1,000 pounds. Molly slept curled in a big chair beside the bed, her bear tucked under her chin. Alexandra Ashcroft stood at the window, snow falling slow behind her. When she turned, her eyes were red, but hard as steel. "You are awake," she said, voice quiet but steady. Bernard tried to sit up, panic rising. "Where am I?" "Northside Medical." She answered. "You collapsed 3 nights ago. I brought you here." He looked at Molly, then back at Alexandra, pieces clicking. "Together you came to my apartment." "Yes, you saved my life." "Bernard Kellerman. Now I am saving yours." Doctors came and went. Fluids finished. Fever broken by noon. Bernard could sit up. Alexandra never left the room. She told him everything. The tape, the lies, the firing, the smear campaign. She watched his face go from shock to shame to something darker. "They called me a predator," he whispered, voice cracking. "They took everything." Alexandra took his hand. "Not everything, not anymore." That afternoon she walked into Ashcroft Tower alone, no driver, no security, just jeans and fury. The boardroom was full. The same 7 faces that watched her die now sat around the same long oak table, pretending nothing happened. Tyler Brigham, the CFO, stood to greet her with a plastic smile. "Alexandra, welcome back. We were so worried." She did not smile. She slammed a tablet on the table and hit play. The security footage filled the screen. Every second of Bernard fighting for her life while they stood frozen or struck him. The room went dead silent. When it ended, she spoke cold and clear. "This man saved my life. You fired him. You smeared him. You let the world call him a criminal for breathing air into my lungs." Tyler opened his mouth. "Alexandra, it was about optics." "Optics," she repeated, voice rising. "You cared more about how it looked than the fact I was dead on that carpet." She looked at each face, every one of you who stood there and did nothing. Or worse, struck the man trying to save me. "You are done here today." HR director tried to speak. "We followed protocol. There is no protocol for punishing a hero." Alexandra cut in. "Pack your office's security. We'll escort you out." Tyler stood red-faced. "You cannot just watch me." She pressed a button on her phone. 2 armed guards appeared at the door within 20 minutes. The 7 most powerful people in Ashcroft Holdings were walking out with boxes while stunned employees watched from cubicles. By evening, the news broke. Alexandra Ashcroft fires entire executive team after leaked footage reveals Janitor hero was smeared for saving her life. The same internet that tore Bernard apart now turned on the company hashtags. Flipped from predator to hero overnight, offers poured. And job offers, interviews, book deals. Bernard watched from the hospital. Bed Molly asleep, against his shoulder as his phone lit up with messages of support he never expected. Alexandra returned that night carrying a thick envelope. Inside was a check big enough to buy a house in any neighborhood. He wanted a full apology printed on company letterhead and a new contract head of Community Outreach 6, figures full benefits starting. Whenever he felt ready, Bernard stared at the numbers, tears running quiet down his face. I just wanted to keep my daughter fed, he whispered. Alexandra sat beside him. You did more than that. You reminded a billionaire what actually matters. Outside, snow kept falling soft and clean over Philadelphia, covering the city in quiet forgiveness. Bernard looked at his sleeping daughter, then at the woman who refused to let the world bury him for the first time in weeks. He breathed easy. This story is over, but the message is not one man proved. Courage has no paycheck. One woman proved power can still choose right over easy drop. Hero, if Bernard earned this ending drop. Justice, if Alexandra did what every billionaire should do when they finally see the truth. Thank you for watching the full series. Real life rarely gives happy endings. Share this one so maybe it starts giving more. The empire fell, the liars were gone, the check was cashed. But real life does not end. When the credits roll, this is what happened. When a janitor and a billionaire refused to let the story stop at revenge. 6 months later, spring painted Philadelphia green, and Bernard Kellerman stood on a porch he actually owned, watching Molly chase fireflies across real grass. No more chain link fences, no more sirens every night. Alexandra Ashcroft leaned against the doorframe, holding 2 glasses of lemonade. She still wore jeans now. She just wore them to barbecues instead of boardrooms. Bernard took the new job, head of community outreach, but rewrote it his way. Every paycheck from Ashcroft Holdings now funded free CPR classes in every rec center. From West Philly to North Philly, thousands learned what he learned that night. How 30 chest compressions and 2 breaths can outrank money every single time. Molly started first grade with new shoes and a lunchbox that never ran out of fruit. Alexandra sold half her shares, started the Kellerman Fund. Every year it paid rent for single parents, paid hospital bills, paid college tuition. She showed up herself, handed out certificates. At graduation ceremonies, kids who once saw her face only on billboards now called her Miss Alex and hugged her like family. Some nights the nightmares still came for both of them. Bernard woke reaching for a chest that was not there. Alexandra woke gasping for air that would not come. They learned to reach for each other instead. No cameras, no headlines. Just 2 people who once died in front of strangers and chose to live differently. The old executives tried lawsuits, tried talk shows, tried comeback. Books, every attempt crashed against one simple truth the world had seen. The tape the world had chosen whose side it was on. Tyler Brigham ended up selling insurance in Delaware. Nobody returned his calls. One warm July evening, Bernard stood on that same porch grilling while Molly taught Alexandra how to catch fireflies without squishing them. Alexandra laughed loud and real, the kind of laugh that never fit in marble boardrooms. Bernard watched them and felt something settle in his chest deeper than any paycheck. Peace. Years later, when people asked how a janitor and a billionaire became family, they both gave the same answer. We died in the same room. We just decided to start breathing for each other instead of waiting for the world to do it. The last anyone saw of the old Ashcroft Tower, the top floor office that once belonged to liars, became a free clinic on weekends. The long oak table was cut into desks for kids who needed a quiet place to study, and every spring a new plaque went up on the lobby wall, simple bronze letters that read, "In memory of the night courage wore a janitor uniform and love learned it could wear a hoodie too." Final words. This was never just a story about revenge. It was proof that one act of decency can rewrite everything. Drop. Thank you if you stayed until the end. Real heroes mop floors. Real power chooses people over profit. Now go. Teach someone CPR. You never know whose billionaire or whose child might need you tomorrow. The headlines faded, the cameras left the money settled, but the real story began when nobody was watching anymore. This is what happened when a janitor and a billionaire chose to keep saving each other long after the world stopped clapping. 10 years passed like soft thunder. Bernard never moved back into a tower. He kept the house with the wide porch and the firefly yard. Alexandra sold the penthouse and bought the empty lot next door, built a community center there with his name on the door in small letters. so nobody would feel small walking in. Molly grew tall and fierce. Graduated top of her class wearing the same worn bear tucked in her gown pocket. She studied nursing because she wanted to be the person who runs toward the crash, not away from it. Bernard walked her down the aisle at 25. Alexandra stood beside him crying harder than the mother of the bride. Every spring they closed the center for one private day. Bernard taught free CPR to new faces. Alexandra served lemonade and told the same story. How she died for 7 minutes and came back because a man in a gray uniform refused to let her go. Kids listened wide-eyed, then practiced on dummies while Molly corrected their hand placement with gentle authority. Some nights Bernard still woke reaching for a chest that was not there. Alexandra still woke gasping for air that would not come. They kept a small lamp burning between their beds. No words needed. Just one hand finding another in the dark. 10 years of breathing lessons. The old executives faded into quiet obscurity. Tyler Brigham sent a letter once. Handwritten apology on cheap stationery. Bernard read it once. Burned it in the backyard fire pit. Watched the smoke carry his anger away with the sparks. Alexandra never wore suits again. She wore sneakers and hoodies and showed up at Little League games. Coached debate club. Taught rich kids how to change a tire and poor kids how to write a resume. Nobody called her Miss Ashcroft anymore. They called her Alex, and she answered every time. One winter morning 20 years after that night, Bernard found her on the porch wrapped in the same blanket they shared the first Christmas. Snow falling gentle around them. She looked at him, eyes soft. "You know, I never thanked you properly." He smiled. "You thank me every day you choose to stay human." She laughed, that real laugh again. "Then I guess we are even." That night the city lost power. Whole neighborhood went dark. But inside their house candles glowed. Molly home from the hospital with her own new baby. 3 generations breathing easy under one roof. Bernard held his grandson for the first time. Whispered the same words he once shouted in a boardroom. "I got you, little man. I got you." Outside snow covered every scar the city ever gave them. Inside the lamp stayed lit. 2 people who once saved each other with desperate hands, now saved each other with quiet mornings and ordinary days. Proof that the greatest revenge is simply refusing to let the world make you cruel. And every year on the anniversary, a new plaque went up in the community center lobby. Simple words. No names. Just this. Courage wore a janitor uniform once. Love learned to wear sneakers. Keep breathing for each other. 25 years after the night her father saved a billionaire. A little girl who once opened a peeling door to a stranger now stands over a stranger herself, ready to prove the story never really ended. Molly Kellerman, now 29, stood in the trauma bay of Northside Medical. White coat, crisp stethoscope swinging. As she barked orders clear the airway intubation tray, now 30. 2-year-old construction worker flat on the table after falling 3. Story's heart stopped, cold crew. Shouting he was just standing there, then dropped Molly. Did not freeze, she had grown up hearing the story every spring at the community center, how her father refused to let a woman die while rich men watched. She dropped to her knees, locked her hands over the man's sternum and began compressions 1, 2, 3, 4. Her voice steady. "Just like Dad taught me, keep the rhythm. Stay on the chest." The room moved around her, nurses sliding tubes, doctors pushing drugs, but Molly stayed the constant 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. The monitor flatlined for 4 endless minutes. Then a beep, a spike, a chaotic rhythm. The man coughed, gasped, clawed. Back from the edge, the crew outside the bay cried. Some dropped to their knees, thanking God. Molly just wiped sweat from her eyes and whispered, "Welcome back." Later that night she walked into the old house porch, light glowing. Bernard, now gray at the temples, sat rocking Alexandra beside him, wrapped in the same blanket they shared for decades. Molly dropped her bag. "You should have seen it, Dad." His heart stopped. 4 minutes. "I would not quit." Bernard smiled. "Soft, I know exactly how that feels." Alexandra stood, pulled Molly into her arms. "You made him breathe again, baby girl, just like your father made me." Molly laughed, tired but bright. The circle stays unbroken. The next morning the news spread. Construction worker saved by doctor who learned CPR from the famous janitor. Hero, 25 years. Later the story looped back on itself. Reporters wanted interviews. Molly turned most down, but agreed to one condition: they film at the community center where it all began. She stood in front of the bronze plaque. Courage wore a janitor uniform. Once love learned to wear sneakers, keep breathing for each other. She looked straight into the camera. "My father taught me hands-only CPR. When I was 6, he said, you never know who will need you next. Today, I needed to be ready for a stranger, because 25 years ago, a stranger was ready for Alexandra Ashcroft. Bernard watched the broadcast from the porch, arm around Alexandra, tears quiet on both their faces. The little girl who once opened a peeling brown door barefoot, clutching a ragged bear, had grown into the woman who opened death door and slammed it shut. Alexandra squeezed his hand. We did something right, Bernard, she smiled. We kept breathing for each other and taught her how to do it for the world. That night the community center stayed open late. Kids practiced on dummies, while Molly walked among them, correcting hand placement, just like she once corrected her own. Tiny hands under her father watchful eye. Bernard stood in the doorway watching 3 generations now, keeping the promise alive. Alexandra slipped her hand into his, whispered, look what one act of courage started. He whispered back, look what love refused to let die. Outside fireflies danced again, same as they did the first summer. They all lived under one roof inside. A new plaque waited for morning, simple words, no names, just this. The little girl grew up. The circle stayed unbroken. Keep breathing for each other. Tomorrow the story travels 30 years forward to a night when Bernard needs saving one last time, and the hands that reach belong to everyone he ever taught. 50 years after the night, a janitor refused to let a billionaire die. The same hands that once reached for her chest now need reaching for one last time. This is the night every breath he ever gave came back to him. Bernard was 83 when his heart finally said enough. He sat on the same porch, fireflies long gone, replaced by grandkids chasing glow sticks. Alexandra, 91, still sharp, still stubborn, sat beside him, wrapped in the same blanket they had shared for half a century. She noticed first his breathing change, slow, shallow, then nothing. She did not scream. She simply laid him gentle on the wooden floor, tilted his head back, pinched his nose, and began the breaths she had never forgotten, 2 steady rescue breaths. Then Molly, now 54, chief of trauma, dropped beside her, locked her hands over her father's chest, and began compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 30, steady beats. Her daughter, Maya, 31, resident doctor, took over. Breaths. Her son, Jamal, 28, paramedic, kept the rhythm. Neighbors poured from houses. Some he taught CPR 40 years ago. Some their parents taught. Some strangers who heard the story and learned anyway. The porch filled with hands taking turns. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. The circle he started 50 years ago now surrounded him. Sirens came, but nobody stopped. Old students, young doctors, neighbors who grew up on the legend. They kept the rhythm alive for 23 minutes. His heart stayed quiet. Then a gasp, a jerk, a weak beat. Bernard opened cloudy eyes, looked at the ring of faces above him, and smiled soft. Molly crying, laughing, still counting. Alexandra, leaning close, whispered, welcome back, baby. I told you we would keep breathing for each other. He managed one raspy laugh, then closed his eyes. Again, this time peaceful. 3 days later, the city shut down for the funeral. Not because he was rich, because every rec center, every clinic, every school he ever touched closed in respect. They carried him through streets lined with people holding hands over hearts, doing silent compressions the way he taught them. Molly walked behind the casket, arm around Alexandra, who refused a wheelchair. She wore sneakers, of course. At the community center, now 5 buildings strong, they lowered him beside a new bronze plaque bigger than all the others. Simple words carved deep. Bernard Kellerman. He started breathing for strangers in 2025. They never stopped breathing for him. The circle stayed unbroken. That night, Alexandra went home alone for the first time in 50 years. She sat on the porch, lamp still burning between empty chairs. Molly brought her tea. Maya brought her grandson. Jamal brought his new baby. They filled the quiet with breathing. Alexandra looked at the stars and whispered, your turn to rest, baby. We got it from here. Every year after, on the anniversary, the city holds 30 minutes of silence. At exactly the minute he once dropped his mop, people everywhere stop, put hands over hearts, count 30 compressions, 2 breaths, then go back to living. A quiet promise. The breath that broke everything 50 years ago became the breath that keeps the whole city alive. Tomorrow, the day Alexandra finally joins him and the circle refuses to break. Even then, stay for the last 2 breaths the story was always leading to. 51 years after Bernard saved her, Alexandra, now 92, sits on the same porch and feels the same flutter in her chest. This time she smiles and lets it take her home. She woke before the birds. blanket tucked around her shoulders, lamp still burning between two empty rocking chairs, spring air thick with lilac and memory. Molly slept inside after night shift. Grandchildren scattered down the hall. Alexandra stood slow, bones singing old songs, walked to the porch railing, looked at the yard where fireflies once danced for a barefoot little girl. She whispered, "Thank you, baby." I kept breathing as long as I could, then sat gentle in Bernard's favorite rocker, closed her eyes, felt the familiar flutter, same one she ignored in a boardroom 51 years ago. This time she welcomed it, folded her hands, smiled soft, and simply stopped. Molly found her at sunrise, face turned toward the rising light. Peaceful, ready, no fear, no fight, just gone to join the man who never left her heart. Time of death, 6:14. Same minute Bernard dropped his mop 51 years earlier. The city felt it before the news broke. Streetlights dimmed for one heartbeat, then glowed brighter. They carried her through streets lined with people, hands over hearts, counting 30 silent compressions, 2 silent breaths. Old students, young doctors, strangers who learned from strangers, all breathing together. Molly walked ahead, Maya and Jamal on each arm, great-grandchildren behind carrying glow sticks instead of flowers. At the cemetery, the 2 graves waited side by side. Bernard earth still dark, now joined forever. Molly placed the worn bear on the casket, ears floppy from 50 years of love. Kissed it, whispered, "We got you, Mom. We got you." That night, every porch in Philadelphia lit one lamp, 1,000,000 small lights burning for the woman who learned love could wear sneakers. The circle stayed unbroken. 52 years to the minute after. Bernard dropped his mop. The entire city of Philadelphia stops moving and gives 1,000,000 perfect compressions to the man and woman who taught them how. 6:14 in the morning. 52 years exactly. Trains freeze. Cars stop. Buses idle. Screens go black. Then light up with the old security footage. Bernard running. Breathing. Fighting. Refusing to quit. At the exact second Alexandra's chest jerks back to life, the city begins. 1,000,000 people, hands over hearts. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. Silent. Perfect. Together, in every park, every schoolyard, every street corner. Old men who learned from Bernard. Kids who learned from Molly. Strangers who learned from strangers. Count as 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All the way to 30. Then 2 slow breaths. Then 30 more. A living heartbeat made of human hands. At the community center now, a citywide network. Molly 80. Maya 60. Jamal 58. Great-grandchildren too many to count. Stand on the steps, hands moving in perfect rhythm. The bronze plaque behind them shines. Courage wore a janitor uniform once. Love learned to wear sneakers. Keep breathing for each other. When the final compression ends, the city exhales together, then cheers soft. Not victory. Promise kept. The breath Bernard gave Alexandra in 2025 has become the breath Philadelphia gives the world every year. No headlines, no cameras, just hands, just hearts, just 30 and 2. One city kept the promise. For 52 years now, the world joins in 6 billion hands. Give the same 30 compressions to the man and woman who proved courage has no paycheck. 70 years after that night, the video goes viral again. Not because of scandal, because of love. A 12-year-old in Manila learns CPR from the old clip. A father in Nairobi teaches his village. A teacher in Reykjavik shows her class. Within weeks, every country, every language, every time zone agrees. On one day, 1 minute, 6:14 Universal Time, the planet stops. 6 billion people, hands over hearts. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. Satellites catch it. Planes circle so passengers can join. Ships rock gentle with the rhythm. Hospitals pause non-emergencies. Schools close for 3 minutes. Prisons allow inmates to stand. The whole world breathing together. One heartbeat. For the janitor who refused to quit. For the billionaire who refused to forget. In Philadelphia, Molly, now 90, sits on the same porch. Great-great-grandchildren around her. Lamp still burning. She smiles at the sky. Whispers, "They felt it, Dad." They all felt it. The circle is everywhere now. News calls it the largest act of synchronized humanity ever recorded. Historians call it the day the world chose kindness. Children just call it 32. And practice on teddy bears, the way Molly once practiced on her father's knee. 100 years after, Bernard dropped. His mop the marble floor still remembers, and the world has never stopped counting 30. This is how the story ends and never ends. Year 2125. The old Ashcroft Tower is gone, replaced by the Bernard and Alexandra Global Life Center, a 100-story building made of glass and gardens. Every floor a free clinic, every wall a classroom. On the ground floor, the exact spot where Bernard dropped his mop, a simple bronze circle is embedded in the marble, footprints worn deep from a century of visitors. Above it, the same words carved fresh every year. Courage wore a janitor uniform once. Love learned to wear sneakers. Keep breathing for each other. Every day at 6:14, the entire building goes quiet. People around the world, in person or by light, place hands over hearts. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 more. 6 billion became 8 billion became 10. The rhythm never missed a beat. Children born after 2050 do not know a time when the world did not stop for 32. They grow up believing this is simply what humans do. When someone needs breath, we give it. No paycheck required, no camera needed, just hands, just hearts, just 30 and 2, and somewhere beyond fireflies and sunrise, beyond time and towers, Bernard and Alexandra sit on a porch that never creaks, watching a planet that learned their rhythm. He smiles soft. She squeezes his hand. Whispers, told you, baby. One act was enough. He laughs quiet. Whispers, look. They never stopped breathing for each other. The lamp between their chairs still burns, always will. The circle, perfectly, eternally, unbroken. The end that is only the beginning. Thank you for staying until the very last breath. If this story moved you, like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe to our channel so we can keep telling stories that remind the world. One ordinary person, one act of courage, can change everything forever. See you in the next heartbeat.